Hey guys, this is Dan at Heart of the Hero, Tools for Successful Minds. We're going to be getting a lot of good stuff today. Greg, what are we getting into?
Today we are talking about why you need to wake up. And it's not like wake up in the morning, like, inject yourself with some adrenaline and get moving. It's why you need to wake up in life because it's very related to your own level of apathy. And apathy is something that never gets covered. And I was really eager to sort of put this on the table and maybe you want a dish, right? Because it's one of those things where I've been in this situation personally. A lot of people I know have been in this situation personally where it's kind of almost like you've got these blinders on, right? And you're kind of apathetic to, this and that, right? So if you've ever been in a situation where maybe you're feeling very high levels of meh, right? Very high levels of kind of like, whatever, apathy, deep levels of that, right? By the end of this video, the goal here is to give you some strategies and give you a real concrete and abstract understanding of what's going on behind the hood and what's causing and creating that. But more importantly, today we're going to show you how to actually move beyond that, what you could do to maybe feel better, to maybe open up some of those blockers that you have that are keeping you from seeing the world in ways that maybe you could remember seeing it, right? Maybe there was a happier time or some, you had a little more zest, right? But something happened or you had a mindset shift or you just forgot and, you woke up today and you were like, oh, what happened in the last 5 years? And life is apathetic. Everything's kind of like there's nothing new. I'm bored, right? If you've ever been in that experience, really stay tuned and kind of plant your feet in. Maybe, you get some popcorn, whatever it is you do, because this show is going to be really, really specifically useful for you.
Yeah, I think often people can't even see themselves as often people can't see themselves as somebody that can actually achieve things or somebody who can actually, get the things they want out of their life. They look at their goals as things that are kind of distant, far off things from them. And I think if you gave up on your dreams early, or if you, gave up on yourself early, or have some kind of a lot of negative mindsets, it's easy to just kind of shrug off all the things that you once wanted in your life as kind of like, this will do. And you can kind of settle into this job that you got this job and it pays the bills. And there's no need to like go off and try anything risky. I've got a comfortable living right here and I can just have a family and live my life here. And that, I don't, again, I don't really down on the simple living, but I've lived it and I've lived that in my life. And that's not fit for everyone. And namely the people that want things out of their life. And so it's one of those things that's really important to focus on. Really, yeah, I think we're going to get into a lot of good stuff here.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's going to be real. It's going to be real helpful, real useful, just another tool for your toolkit. So, um, if you've experienced that sensation, I really want to kind of delve a little bit into apathy, like as a thing, right? Like what it is, maybe give you kind of a definition to play with so that you can at least see what we're talking about in a way that like illuminates it in your own mind, right? Kind of gives you the keys to the car, so to speak, so you can go where it is you want to go in this conversation. And maybe you're listening now and it's opening some doors to what's possible, at least, right? So apathy is essentially just a lack of concern, right? It's a lack of enthusiasm. It's literally a lack of interest in whatever it is. Now, it's not anti-interest, right? It's not like I'm repulsed by this thing or I don't want to do this, or it's just like you don't have that spark that makes you pull the trigger on actually doing things, on actually saying, yes, I want this, on actually moving forward in life, or, going on that date or calling that person or making that money. You don't really have any mechanism in your feelings. You don't have any mechanism that gives you the ability to actually see why those things matter as much as they do, right? And a lot of times, and maybe you've been in this situation, a lot of times what happens is this is something that can happen to people who are overly logical. Because if you're a very
Indeed.
logical, rational person, right? Well, you can sort of reduce the world, right? And a lot of people here's a good example, right? Maybe you're one of these people, so don't take this offensively. It's just a kind of one of those experiential truths you pick up as you go on, right? But there are people who have very strongly held values, right? And it could be a positive thing or it could be a negative thing, right? But what that does is it stratifies, it sort of changes the levels of how they view the world, right? Maybe your political opinion is something you hold in very high regard, right? Or your religion is something you hold in very high regard. And that makes sense. It's important to you, right? So what happens is everything else kind of takes the back seat to that. It kind of, just kind of is weighed down. So when you're dealing with things that matter to you, there's this energy, there's this excitement, there's this enthusiasm, right? But if you tend to be maybe a skeptical or very overly rational, hyper rational person, right? What happens is there's a tendency to step back from your own personal feelings about most things and try as well as you can through logic and reasoning to level the playing field so that everything is equally everything is equally gray, because that's how you make a objective decision about things. So maybe if you're one of those kinds of people who is what you would consider hyper rational, right? This is something you really want to key in on and pay attention to, because it's gonna open some doors in your own thinking and give you some opportunities to maybe make some growth.
Well, and I think this is somewhere I'm going to focus a lot on. Probably this is a big area of self-awareness. You need to know yourself and know the things that you want to actually to actually make calculated decisions that are going to, make you break that apathetic feeling that you have. That you need to make decisions that are based on the things that inspire you and give you passion and ambition. Those type of things are things that you should base most of your decisions off of. And I think, like you said, when that logic and reasoning kind of comes into play, that can get in the way as well. But I think a big thing is it's just a lack of self-awareness, because if you were fully self-aware of what you wanted and it was somewhere that was in the front of your mind and you've been focusing on that you would want it, and you were already making changes and you've already been down kind of this road of doing this, and then you've already got this level of self-awareness about yourself and the things that you want. And so that's important if you're starting out. And if you're already going along the way, make sure you just kind of keep checking yourself, because you can change your mind, things can change, and eventually you start to feel that kind of like sensing of, I'm not into this either. And it's not necessarily apathy. Maybe it's not apathy. Maybe it's just you're not actually aligned with things that are fulfilling your desires and your ambitions. And I think for me, at least personally, I know that there was a long time where I knew I should be moving in life. I think it was a few years ago. It was like I was in school and there was a couple things I could be doing, and I had areas that I was more experienced at, so I could come out with a degree and experience, and I'm thinking about the degrees I could get, and I'm in the classes and I'm going through the motions, and it's just terrible. It was just miserable. And honestly, there wasn't anything bad about going through school. I had been doing that for the last 12 years of my life. It was really just, it was boring. It was just zero energy about it. I didn't care about what I was doing. I think it was at the time, it was just like, mechanics, or no, it wasn't mechanics. It was engineering, and engineering's an admirable field, but it just doesn't get me up in the morning. Like it does. It's not just something. Working with large machineries in a manufacturing plant isn't exactly aligned with what I want as a person out of my own life, and so it kind of gave me this meh feeling about everything I did. I was just kind of going through the motions. This job was going to pay me pretty well. So who cares? I'll just go down this path because and then I'll figure it out at the end. And that kind of gives you're floating along in this apathetic field of, I don't really, care. I'm just going to go here and we'll figure it out later. And, I'll take care of those problems that I had some other time. And, one day I'll have this and one day I'll have that. And, it's always pushing it off to kind of taking control of your life to a different time. But, it's kind of now, this, I'd say, as well as, awareness, this goes back to the decide now factor, where this is something that you need to evaluate and decide in the moment what you're doing, because time is precious. Our time is valuable, and, we don't want to waste it any longer on things that aren't actually things that break that apathy.
No, and it's almost like the apathy. It saps your. It's almost like it saps your curiosity. It's almost like it saps your energy. It saps it steals away. It leeches away who you used to be, who you thought you might become, who you could have been, because all the things that you used to hold close, right? All the things that you used to want to move towards. When you move through the stage of becoming very apathetic to, however many things it is, right? It could be 6, it could be everything. It makes it very difficult for you to decide to move beyond it. It makes it feel difficult because there's this weight, right? Maybe it's in your chest, or it's in your body, or it's, something that's, ethereal, and you don't know where it is, but it's there and it's heavy, right? So you get this sense that everything that you're doing is really not useful. It's really not important. It's really fairly meaningless because of whatever reasons you have to sort of fill that gap, right? And what that does is it takes away your drive, right? It takes away your energy and most importantly, it makes everything feel very monotonous and steals your creativity, right? And steals your curiosity, right? And so I think a big part of moving through this is really trying to reinvigorate that sense of, maybe not a sense of wonder, but a sense of sort of what could be, right? What could happen? What is this? Is this something that is ingrained in me, right? And I remember when I first kind of started my own personal development journey. It was a long time ago. It was maybe 6 years ago. I sort of moved through some ladders, right? I kind of moved through some obstacles of my own, right? A couple of years go by, I'm reading, I'm learning, all this stuff is great, changing as a person, all this stuff is good. And what started to happen was I started to become aware that I had a very high level of apathy towards a lot of different things, right? And so I was trying to align myself, and maybe if you're listening, you'll identify with this. Some people, right? Some people, they're born with this drive, with this goal, and it's very clear, right? It's very clear. It's like, I want to be a police officer, and that's what they know they're doing, and they go through their whole life, and they're going to do that, and then they end up doing it, right? Or they're a teacher or whatever it is, right? Well, I happen to be one of those people, and maybe you are too. Maybe you know someone who may not necessarily know, like you don't know where you want to go or who you need to be, or yeah, right. That's right. It's like there's a tendency for people like that to congregate, right? Because the go-getters, right, are all like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, right? Well, there tends to be this kind of apathy that creeps in, right? Maybe if you haven't decided where you want to go, because there's no sense of urgency, right? There's no sense of, I need to move here, I need to go here, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to be now, right? It doesn't happen, because why would it, right? So I remember when I first started my own personal development journey, right? A couple years ago by, I kind of started working on this project. This guy, it was an app for some development stuff. And like, I was kind of a novice juvie, just horrible programmer. I was a horrible programmer, right? Well, I took on this project that was way bigger than sort of what I was able to do, but I didn't know at the time. So I'm chugging along, right? I'm doing what I'm doing. But even in that space, right, even seeing the finish line, right, I was kind of teaching myself to clank away at stuff, and even through that, I still was kind of like, this is not that interesting, right? This is not that. This isn't changing me. This isn't really making anything happen for me, right? And you kind of have a sense of that. Maybe it's somewhere inside or in your head or whatever. It's like, that what you're doing, that who you are right now is not who you want to be. It's not where you want to go, because maybe you haven't even decided, right? But there are things. If I gave you $50,000 right now, you could think of the things, because you in that situation you'd be doing it. You could go towards them, right? You go buy yourself some new clothes, or buy yourself a new car, or you'd move somewhere, right? So you do have desires. They are there. But what happens is this apathy of, this doesn't actually matter, just kind of creeps over. It's a very slow grading mist that sort of eats away at the rust of your mind, so to speak. And one of the things that I kind of picked up moving forward, right, moving through this, were a couple perspectives and a couple mindsets that really helped me to move through that particular part of my life, right? It was almost like the reading that I'd done and sort of the experience that I picked up gave me this bag of keys, right, to move through this. And I might kind of tie that story up a little bit and kind of explain where I went from there, right? What happened with the project, and what happened with all this kind of stuff. But really, right now, I want to talk a little more about you, about the listener, about whoever you might be. What are some ways that maybe someone could notice this on an individual level? Like, what are some ways they could see that they're having this as an issue?
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to think back to that time. It was very recognizable in my life. It's something that you kind of it's hard to explain how because each individual person, how does it feel to be inspired by something? How do you describe that? It's kind of a transcendent feeling of inside you. It's kind of your gut knows. If you're inside your life and you're not ever getting excited about anything, and there's nothing that like actually gets you worked up and like gets you feeling really good, and like whether and it could be another person, even if you got a person in your life that does that for you on that level, great. But there's other ways to fill that with things that bring you alive as a person. There's ways to fill that void by creating a type of person that does the things that are oriented around stuff that makes them excited, a job that, they are excited to wake up in the morning and go do because of what, the goal is behind the company that they work for, and the things that they're doing on a day-to-day basis are things that they enjoy doing. Or, a musician that follows his passion to, become a professional artist and spend his time doing shows and gigs daily and following it for his life because that's what he loves doing. And even if he doesn't make it to some level that we've all deemed as successful, he's gotten to live his life doing things that he's loved. And so who's been more successful, you in a cubicle asleep, acting like this job actually fulfills you and makes you a full person and gives you purpose, when you know for a fact that there's other things that you wish you could be doing, things that you want to be doing. Who's living their life more? The people that aren't living this, making a corporate life that's, lived in a cubicle and flying a desk for 20 years just to retire when they're old. I mean, life is not, to me, about a paycheck as much as it is about how you make that paycheck. I've talked to multiple people making all different types of incomes, from 30,000 to 200,000 to 300,000, to people that have taken this world and their job and they've made it their own, and they've mastered it and made it the max amount of money they can where they're at. And guess what? They hate their jobs. They were miserable. They couldn't stand doing what they were doing. And so and there's people making $20,000 to teach art because they love art, and it probably makes them a really happy, satisfied person, because they're actually following things that are aligned with their passions. It's not necessarily about a paycheck or a view or a certain lifestyle. It's about finding a lifestyle that is the lifestyle that you want to live and actually makes you the most of who you are as a person.
Right, and it could be that you're listening, and I can already see some of the kind of automatic, or objections that are going to come up, because what you said, Dan, is spot on,
Probably.
right? It's spot on, and it's like in someone listening, right? They might think, well, this doesn't apply to me. This no longer applies to me because I'm not the kind of person who wants to settle for whatever. I have so much potential, but I just haven't had the right opportunity, or I just haven't done the right thing, or I just haven't, I'm the special child, or maybe you're not, maybe that you're not, and maybe you want to be, whatever it is, right? It's like you're going to have these objections that come up that basically tell you that whenever someone says that it's not about money, right? It's not about, success itself. There's this polarization that happens, right? It's like, okay, you're either going to be full on or you're going to be full off, meaning you're going to be in pure apathy or you're going to be in pure go-get-em mode, right? And that's a really bad distinction to make, because what happens is there's this whole center area, right? There's this whole place in the middle where you can choose to live whatever life you want. You could make 60K, or you could make 20K, and you could be doing the same thing. You could literally be doing the same thing in a different field, in a different city, in a different area, whatever. But all the changes, all those different things that are going to come up, they're actually going to change your experience, right? Maybe in one place you're making 60, the other one you're making 20, but in the one that you're making 20, or the one that you're making 60, you find the right person to be married to, and you like the place that you live. Who knows, right? There's a whole bunch of different things that really can't be calculated as far as like monetary success. So drop that if you're thinking, if you're a hyper-rational person, right? And you're like, well, if I don't immediately get to see the benefit, the physical benefit of this, it doesn't make sense to me, because that's actually a viscerally illogical position to hold, because there's a lot of benefits that can't be judged in that way.
Well, and I think probably a better way that I can put it for people is you need to have like a life. You need to orient your goals to be not like so number oriented, but event, like, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's like you want to have a cabin out in the woods but near your family with a river nearby, and you want to be able to travel here, and you want to have this amount of friends, and you want to be able to go see places and do things that you want to do. It's this lifestyle. You should have goals that are oriented around building the lifestyle that you want. And now, if that means that the monetary value has to be fairly high to provide you with the type of lifestyle that you want to live, and that's just the lifestyle you want to live. And you know, good luck to you, because the higher that lifestyle that you want to live, and the higher that you want to get, the more work and the more effort and the more grind it takes. You can make as much money as you want. You decide as much as you are willing to work and effort you're willing to put in. And if your lifestyle that you are calling for and you want, if it's necessary for you to make that much money, then by all means do what you need to do to get there. But I'm saying it's more probably about balance in your decision making, because I've seen people go just strictly for the money and not concern themselves in any other area, and just be very unhappy people because they didn't spend any of that time even like being happy or finding things that they could be fun doing, or making friends in certain areas. And so there's a balance of finding what, like, for instance, like one of my main goals is, I want is passivity. I want to be able to spend time doing things that I like, right? That's kind of the goal for me, and whatever that kind of takes. It doesn't necessarily have a dollar amount on it. It has a lifestyle amount on it. When am I allowed the financial freedom that I crave? And so it, like you said, there's some variables in there that can't really be calculated as much as, and it's individual to each person. Like, what is it that you want? What is the actual things in your life that if you could wave a wand right now, what would you change in your life? Like, we all have some of those things, whether it be a nicer car or some, a new wardrobe, or a new house, or no debt, or whatever it is. You have things in your life that you might change about your situation, and some of that calls for you making a little more money and actually getting up and caring about some things, and shaking this apathetic view of the world and your success, and be waiting for somebody to come save you and give you all this. You actually have to be willing to get up and make a decision to actually follow something, anything actually at this point, to get yourself moving, because when you're apathetic, you're sitting still,
Right. And you can see through this. You're right when you say you're sitting still, and even from that position of sort of sitting still, you can logically make sense of it, right? You can, because really what's going to motivate you is the feeling, of course, right? But you can actually make sense of this from where you're at. You can think, okay, all right, so what will happen? What will happen for me as a person if I stay how I am, if I stay where I am? Am I happy where I'm at? Am I where I want to be? If I had other options, right? If I had other decisions that I could make, would I choose to think of things or do things in a different way? And if your answer to those questions is yes, then that means that no, you're not happy where you're at. Because if you were truly happy with where you were at, meaning not happy where you're at, as in you're feeling happy, but happy with the position that you're in. If you were feeling that, right, then there would really not be a huge drive to need to change it, right? And maybe there's not that for you, but there can sometimes, even through the apathy, there can be this low-level dissatisfaction. And what happens is, instead of dealing with that dissatisfaction, you decide it doesn't matter. You decide it's fine. It works. This is okay. This is eh. I would rather just be meh than be unhappy. I would rather just be apathetic than be weighed down, right? And so if you start to notice which it is for you, if you start to notice which it actually is for you, and most likely, maybe for you, it's not necessarily all apathy. Some of it could be maybe some fear or some perspectives about what it is that you could or couldn't do, right? And you don't have to engage with all this. You don't have to actually deal with all this, but just kind of becoming aware of it opens up a huge amount of opportunities and doors and decisions that you could make and places that you could go that are extremely positive and powerful for your life.
Well, and I chimed in on perspectives. No, I mean, like, it was like, because that was another thing I wanted to hit on, was limiting beliefs. Like you're talking about this habit of doing all these things and telling yourself it's fine and all this stuff, and you kind of build this idea about yourself and about your life and about what things are possible and are, and are available to you. And I did the same thing for just the majority of my life. And when I got there, I realized that even after I'd kind of become conscious and aware of what I wanted to do, how to get there, and that I needed to get a move on and start working, and I needed to act and act and assess and adjust and act and assess and adjust. And before I got there, and even when I got there, I had these mindsets about my own success. I had this mindset about my own skills, like, I don't know if, like, you guys probably, some of you might relate to this, where, there's this inherent kind of self-doubt You know, it kind of this almost like it's hard to believe that you can actually do it. You know, like there was times where I knew I could take the steps that were necessary, but like if someone were to really ask me like, how's it going, how you feeling, or I would have a kind of a hesitant, I'm learning, I'm going, and I wouldn't really have this kind of confidence behind the things that I was saying because I had built all these limiting mindsets and these limiting beliefs because it was the limitations that had been built on me throughout my entire life. Like from the way from my childhood all the way up to now, the things that I had been telling myself, the things that I had kind of added meaning to that maybe didn't mean anything. I had a lot of these being exposed to me when I started taking actions, and I kind of broke through that apathy about my life and I actually started caring. I decided to grow up and do something about it. And, when I got to there, you start to notice these patterns in your brain, and you need to actually identify those and like be aware of them because and push through them mentally, because you can't allow yourself to stay in the same mindset that you were in when you were lazy or apathetic or just living your life a different way. You've changed what things that you want, and you've changed the direction of your life. That's going to take different things in you. And if you have those unsettling feelings of self-doubt, you really, the only cure that I've ever found is by taking action. The more you learn, the more valuable you feel as a person, the more valuable you become. You start to you start to kind of feel more valuable as a person. You start to gain that confidence that you can actually do things because you start to see the reflection of your work and effort that you're putting in your life, and people see you working hard, and they'll tell you, I've noticed, or they'll respond to you and they'll ask you questions about why you're doing things, and you get to explain, well, yeah, like I've been working on this and working on this, like, wow, yeah, we've really noticed, and and that starts to build this confidence back up. So honestly, if you have those kind of lingering self-doubt, I can't do it feelings, and that's why you're apathetic, is because you're just kind of like, well, I can't do it anyway. I have a limiting mindset and I'm not going to do anything. So like if you're in that state, just know that the only way out of that, if you're in this kind of I can't really do it state, or I think you can do it, or you're just struggling and you're midway through the grind and you're in this state, like the only way out is through. And so you have to keep acting and keep making decisions and keep pushing, because if not, you're just going to find yourself lulling yourself back into old habits and old limiting mindsets.
Yeah, no, I actually totally identify with that. You can fall back into old limiting mindsets super easily, and this is something that I think you can miss really simply if you've done it. Like if you're doing it right, and it's like you'll set up this thing that you want to do. Right, you've got this goal that you want to complete, and it could be anything. It could be you're going to go outside, and you're going to do your trim your bushes, or you're going to go set up a new system online, or whatever the thing is for you. Right, it could be file a report, do something for school. But what happens is you may have patterns of not doing the things that you put out for yourself for whatever reason, and it could be that it could be the apathy, it could be the feelings, whatever it is. But you may choose to decide, okay, in this moment, like I'm going to do this. Like yeah, this works for me. Like I could make this work. I could make this happen. Like I could move through this. I could do this. And then, 15 minutes or 5 minutes or an hour later, something happens or something doesn't happen, and you are doing something different. You're doing something else. You're eating, or you're digging out of your cereal bowl because you were suddenly hungry, or you got to go shower, or someone texts you and you were gonna do the thing. You were gonna watch the video or take the action or move through whatever it was, and you were sure about it in that moment, and then something happened and you weren't anymore. So the lulling into old patterns, right? It's the siren's call. It will keep pulling you back until you decide that you've had enough, that you actually do want to make the change. And it may not even be a huge change. It may not even be anything that is massively different. It may not even be this huge mind shift, but sometimes the small things domino into what becomes the rest of your life, right? And I think that's a huge thing to latch onto early.
Yeah, and that siren's call, it's definitely, that's definitely a killer, because what I've noticed is when you have momentum and you're moving and you're making good decisions and you're actually taking, your time valuable and doing it right, and you're on a roll, you're just doing great. It's you got to watch. It's really just a double-edged sword, because you're like, all right, I can take a break now. We're doing great. There's no reason I can't watch some TV, do X, Y, Z. Why can't I do any of these things? I've been doing great, and you go and you do that thing, and that's fine. And then the next day comes up, and all of a sudden you want to watch TV again, or you want to go do X, Y, and Z. And you're sitting there like, oh, like I have resistance from this now. Why? Like, because you've added that back into your kind of availability in your mind, where is when you were kind of just hard-nosed, focused on what you were doing, that was all that was available to you. But now that you've kind of been like, okay, I can do this again. And then you go back and you watch some more that day. And then you're watching TV every day again. And now you're blowing time away that you should be doing on things that you need to be doing and taking care of your life and investing in balance in your life rather than just kind of being, rather than just being kind of pulled, just let yourself stay on the course, because if you let go, the more you let go, the more you let in your life, the harder it is the next time you're at a grind to stay at it, because it's there and you're thinking about it and you just did it and it was fun, it was relaxing, it was good for you. So it's kind of difficult. You really sometimes really got to just cut a lot of that stuff out completely when you really are on grind time and you need to get things done. Sacrifice must be made.
No, and talking about getting things done, you mentioned energy earlier, and you mentioned energy levels. So, could you talk about maybe some of the ways, or maybe some of the possible reasons that doing this, that maybe tackling this apathy or this kind of indecision or this kind of fog, that keeps you from doing whatever for whatever reason, kind of tackling that. What are some ways that might actually give someone access to more energy, like more actual energy that they could use?
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of important for you to it's important for you to realize that the energy is already there. It's not like this energy comes from some external source. You don't hook up to a wall and charge up real quick and then go do something. This energy is already inside you. It's just allowing yourself to get to places where that comes about. And I think that's important when you're making when you've been self-aware enough to identify your goals, and you've been self-aware enough and in control of your life enough to make changes to orient your life towards that. When you're in that, and you're starting to, and you've kind of started that process of making those initial changes and those tough calls and those long nights, you get energy from that, because it when on those buzzing downtime where you can't work on anything and you're doing other things, like, and you don't really have that feeling of being like, oh, I got to do stuff, I got to work. It's like, no, you do stuff every day, you grind every day. That means when you're not working, you don't have to think about it. When you're not working, you can just be lighthearted, enjoy the moment, enjoy whatever you're doing, and be separate from it completely, because you've taken care of these areas. You've started making the decisions to move your life where it needs to be going. And as long as you're executing, those daily, like every time you're not doing those, you can separate it from it completely and be like, no, I know I've taken care of this. So I can focus on my friends. I can focus on my family. I can focus on, working out. I can focus on writing books. I can do whatever you want to do. And you can focus on just that. And that gives you energy to do those things. Because like a lot of your energy and your mind energy is always so spread worrying about how, like, oh man, I got to do this. No, don't forget to do this. No, don't forget to do this. And if you don't start doing this, then you're going to end up not doing this. And if you don't stop getting on, I mean, you sit here just constantly buzzing. And then when you're not doing that and you're hanging out with your friends, all you're doing there is you're not even giving them your full, attention, because your brain's kind of being pulled like, oh man, you still have all this stuff to take care of over here and you're not doing it. You're not paying attention. Listen to me. And so when you make that action and that instant action, you start making choices that are orienting your life in the direction that you want it to, not only will you feel kind of more like in control and empowered in your life, but also you'll be able to give the other areas of your life all the attention that it needs. And that manifests as energy, just because you're going to feel more present in the room. You're going to feel more like involved in what you're doing, rather than just scatterbrained all over the place worrying about things all the time.
What do you mean when you say involved in what you're doing?
Well, I mean,
you said you're going to feel more involved in what you're doing.
Well, I mean, so the best way I can describe it is, you ever been with somebody and then waiting for a text from somebody else? Like every time, like you hear a phone, you like, or like your phone buzzes, you like pick it up, and like you're not really fully involved in what you're doing at that moment, because your brain, part of it is like really focused on wanting to get a text message from this person and waiting for it to happen, anticipating it to happen. That means part of your attention is on your phone and on the reasons why you haven't heard from this person yet, maybe, like, and so that person, what you're doing, wherever you're at physically, you're not really involved very well. You're kind of like halfway there, like, they're getting part of your efforts and part of your, emotion and part of your intellect and part of your smile. You're not fully engaged with the people that you're around or the tasks that you're doing. Say you're trying to study, and you have all these stuff lingering that you left over that you haven't done. Like same thing. Say you were waiting for a text message and you were trying to study. Like every time you'd think your phone you'd hear your phone, you'd like pick it up and check. Or you'd be checking it randomly just in case for some reason it didn't go off. Your attention isn't on what you're doing fully, which it's kind of pulled to your cell phone. So like the same way, that's what happens when you have lingering things that you haven't done in your life and you haven't made decisions that you know are like, oh, I need to reorient this. I need to take action in this area. I need to make changes in this area, and you haven't done it. Then most of the day you spend yourself kind of not fully involved with everything you're doing because your attention is like partially thinking about all these things that you need to be getting done and making lists and going through checklists and rationalizing why. And that maybe just be me a little bit because some people are a little more in the present, but I think the same feeling of anxiety and stress can come from all these lingering leftover tasks that haven't been done. And so when you can, orient your life, clean it up a little bit, get yourself moving in a direction that actually inspires you and motivates you, then you can kind of put those things to rest when you're not doing them and be fully involved with the friends that you're with or in the workout that you're doing or the book that you're reading, whatever it is. I think that's the energy that you get is really just the lack of letting go of some of the mental energy that's drained on thinking about these tasks. It's now focused towards the things that you can do, you're doing, and being more present in them.
No, yeah, and you're right that creates immense levels of energy. I remember the difference between sort of being present and having these constant pings about other stuff in your mind, right? Things that people are doing or they're not doing, or you're showing up here and you got to go here and you got to do this and check your calendar and check your Facebook and just doesn't stop, right? And I think that can actually harm. It can actually damage a lot of your relationships and your experience of life, really. But one of the things that I wanted to cover specifically, and this is specifically for people who might be a little bit too skeptical. They're a little bit too reticent, right? They're not sure if this is what they need to hear right now or not, because there are those people, right? And you might not be listening. You might not be the type of person like that, right? Hopefully, if you're listening, you're not that kind of person, but you could be, you might be, and you might have maybe thought about, well, maybe I'm not quite convinced. Maybe I'm not quite there yet, right? Maybe you're kind of on the fence and floating in your mind about it. Well, one of the things that I kind of want to walk through real quick is sort of the ideas and the long vision, right? The long term of what would happen or what could happen to a person who maybe continues to be apathetic, right? Like if you are a person, right, and maybe you're a college student, or you're a young person or an older person with a job, or you don't have a job, or whatever your situation is, right? And you could get real specific. It could be real specific to you because your situation is very unique. But one of the things that's going to change the way that you interact with the world is your level of interest in being in it, your level of interest in being involved in what you're doing, right? So as a person, if you were to choose to sort of take this hands-off perspective of, well, nothing really matters and I can do whatever I want, or I can do nothing and nothing matters and I feel really nothing about anything because everything's the same and everything's gray and nothing's real, and whatever the perspectives behind that are, right, that creates this very high level of unsatisfaction, of dissatisfaction, of disinterest, right? Whatever the reasons are for you. What do you think would happen for a person? What are some of the things that might appear in their life or in their experience, Dan, if they're dealing with that consistently?
Long-term,
real long-term, rest of their life, honestly.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Do you want to end up exactly where you're at right now in 20 years? I mean, because I have friends that'll probably be there, and it's a scary thought. Do you want to have to ask yourself in 10 years, like, what have I been doing? Do you want to be 15 years from now regretting the decisions you made now? Like, what's stopping you from taking the now and actually deciding to actually make something for your future rather than your comfort right now? Because I think that's one thing that we get focused on. When you get too focused on your comfort, when you get too focused on how you feel right now in this moment, you stop focusing as much as you need to be on the future, right? Because if you're not making decisions that are challenging you now and pushing you forward now, then you're not really setting yourself up for anything good in the future. You know, you're kind of bottlenecking yourself at this. There's this gap in your life of like, you know, you've been going along and pretty much the school system's had you mapped out till about here. And like pretty much there's just this bottleneck of just like, one day you're going to wake up 10 years, 15 years down the line and be wondering why you're having the same problems that you had 10 years ago and why you're still in this living situation, or you're still with this toxic person, or all your relationships fell apart and all your other friends moved away and started, you know, careers and started families. I mean, you're going to be left in this place that is going to be pretty uncomfortable. It's a place that I honestly have created in my mind to keep me motivated from stopping and ever quitting the pursuit of the things that I want and the things that I think that the life I live should look like. And I will give everything that I have to make sure that I can help as many people and to touch as many lives as I can, because that's something that actually activates me as a person. It brings me joy to do that. And I won't, you know, and I won't stop, because this is actually, I know that my biggest fear is not trying. You know, one of my biggest fears is being on my deathbed and just looking back at my life like, what did I do? You know, like, or being 10, 15 years from now and not having handled any of the situations or the issues that I have. You know, I can't even imagine that. It actually makes me move in the present now sometimes, because if I need to think about it and I don't have motivation, I just ask myself like, well, let's go go through a time portal and talk to the person that you are in 15 years and ask him how he feels about it. You know, and I try to envision myself as if I stopped and quit, or if I gave up, what would it actually look like? And you know, and it scares me because I don't want to feel that. I don't want anybody. I don't think that anybody should feel that. I feel like regret is something that's a powerful emotion that we should honestly be trying to avoid, because what that looks like is actually making decisions in the now for your future rather than for your own comfort right now.
No, that's perfect, and a lot of I think a lot of that's what a lot of parenting is, and this is a weird connection, but it's like as a parent, right? You're almost a parent to your future self. You're almost a parent to a custodian of your future, so to speak, right? Because every decision you're making now, everything that you're doing in the moment, right? The decisions you're making, the places that you're going, the people you're choosing to interact with, they are shaping your future, right? And it could be a positive thing. It could be very positive. It could be very negative. And I think one of the things that you could start to understand that would really help give some clarity to the gravity of what this actually means for you as a person is the fact that right now, right now, you know, this video, you know, the videos you'll watch later, the things that you'll do this evening, or the, you know, the people you'll talk to today, tomorrow, the next day, the work you will or won't do, these things are shaping your very, very long-term future, because we don't know the implications of everything that we do, but we do know the implications of the habits we build, right? The habits that you are building, the things that you're doing consistently, the mindsets that it takes on, the way that it shapes your character, it's actually changing you right now for the future. And so I really do think it is important to sort of look ahead to make decisions right now. So if maybe you were on the fence, right? If maybe you were unsure, just kind of let that percolate a little bit, because it's one of those things that it will snap you into the moment, because no one wants to be that person who didn't do the thing that they needed to do, to just the one thing to change their life for the better, right? To change their life in a positive direction, in a happier direction, to give them more energy, right? To bring them up.
Mm. Yeah, and it's making decisions in the now for the future. I mean, people don't value today enough. You know, people don't value the effect that your decisions right now have on your future. You know, all we've ever had is right now. That's all you ever had is you've been moving through time linearly. That's the only way we can experience it. And, you know, you know, the days have come and days have gone that have gone unproductive that we can't get back, and we've built the situations that we're in based on the decisions in our past. We're in the situation we're in right now because of the decisions we made in our life, nothing else. Now, granted, there are people born into much tougher situations than I, and also much better situations than I, and that is the cards we are dealt. But all that cards really says is, here's how much effort you're going to have to give.
Mm. No, I agree. I agree. I agree. And I think if you, I think if that resonates with you, you know you're ready to take action, and it may not even be a huge action, right? But you think that maybe you are ready, and you think that maybe this resonates with you. What we're going to talk about next is probably the most important piece. It's the catalyst. It's how you can actually make this happen. How you can actually sort of throw that fog out the door, right? And just feel you could feel more clarity and feel kind of less apathy because you're not worried about worrying. You're not worried about whether or not these things are what you want because you've decided what you want. You've chosen that you want something that matters to you, right? So, what are some ways that, what are some, probably some of the best ways that a person could get started really anchoring and, chugging away at removing that feeling of apathy and the unsurety, and really align themselves more with their actual needs, passions, and desires?
Again, I think it comes back to decide now. It's not something that you can wait on anymore, because the only thing that you haven't probably done much of is make change and make decisions that entice change. Because at this point, the first thing you need to do, maybe if I were to go maybe a little more practical, like if you're get your budget in order. If your budget's not in order, get it in order. I've talked about this in another video, but your budget and your living situation are a very good reflection of the level of discipline and the level of, I guess, apathy towards your life and it being put together that you have. Because if your house is a mess and your budget's all behind and out of order, and you don't really even know how much you're spending, then that's two areas that you can take action on, like right now, and just go tackle. You can literally get off this podcast when you get home. If you're driving or if you're listening in your living room now, just like pick this thing up and start cleaning. Get your house perfect. I promise you, you'll feel good about it. You'll be like, oh, look what I did. It looks all shiny in here. And it gives you like an easiness of mind, because there's not this mess around you. You're not constantly worried about bills. Take those actions and tell me how you feel, because if you can get those things in order, and which you should be able to, because it's really not that difficult, it really comes with you choosing. And those little steps, those are just too little. And that's a cheat, because really it's as simple as what to do, and you need to take action like soon. Because if you're in this lulling, apathetic state and you don't know where you're going anymore, you need to start taking action in a direction that's aligned with you. So, get some self-awareness. If you got to do some meditation, if you got to do some, self-reflection, write out everything that's about who you are as a person, the things you like, the things you don't like, the things you want to be, the type of lifestyle you want to live, why you want to do the things you want to do, and just to figure out what it is that you want to do, and something that aligns with your passions. Like, you need to do that, become more self-aware, make a decision, make a change, get your budget in order, get your house in order. These small little tasks can help you just get the ball rolling, and you'll know what to do instinctually. Follow your gut, follow your passion, follow the things that you enjoy doing and that inspire you. And you have this gut instinct. We all do. We're all animals. So follow it when it comes down this road. Like, get these things knocked out, get the ball rolling, and see where you end up. See where you end up looking. We have other videos about goal setting. I think, have we done the goal setting yet? If not, we're doing one. So there's a lot of good material in here that if you're not done, you want some more, go check it out, and go find one that maybe would help you out in your current situation, because we have more. But really start to take those actions and inform yourself is really about what you want, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and you're gonna find there are a few times that you have these opportunities, and I don't say that to like be this foreboding guy, but it's almost like when you have this constant apathy, this constant lack of interest and lack of enthusiasm. It's almost like you're in this forest, right? And you could imagine very deep shades of purple or black or darkness, right? And you're surrounded by it because you're in this forest, and it's quiet, and there's nothing around you, and there's trees, and you're there, and you exist, and you exist because you hear yourself breathing, and you can hear your heartbeat, and you can feel your hands when they move through the air, but you're not sure where to go. You're not sure where to align yourself with, because how could you be? You can't see, right? You don't have any way out of it. Sometimes through this fog, through this space of unawareness, you'll get these pangs, you get these spheres, these spears of light that appear, They appear through the cracks in the darkness, through the sides, through the top of the forest, the trees, through, you know, wherever they come from. They illuminate a little bit. They illuminate just enough. They illuminate a pathway that you can move out of. And that's the pathway that you could choose to take, because when you see it, it's actually the way to get out permanently, to actually get beyond that permanently. But what happens is, what happens when you move a light away from you, right? What happens when you see a lantern and you're walking and they're moving further and further away, right? Or you're moving further and further the other direction. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And the longer you wait, the longer you let that light move further from you, the harder it is for you to get yourself out of this position you're in right now, which is this deep uninterest, apathetic, lack of energy and motivation. And you don't want to be here, because if you wanted to be here, you wouldn't have watched the video this far. So the light, the forest, right? You're here for a reason, because you can see that the way for you to move beyond it is just to decide and do, decide and do, decide and do. And you could do that now, right? So I think it's useful. I think it's helpful. I think it can move you beyond it if you just chose that, yeah, this makes sense to me. Yeah, this actually is something that I can use. And whenever, you know, you do it, it could be now and it could be later. It could be tomorrow. It could be next week. It could be today. But take action on it. Actually put this stuff into use, right? Put it into practice. So maybe you could wrap us up a little bit, or do a quick summary. Maybe you could do a quick summary, Dan, so people could really let this sink inside and get what this actually means in a different way.
Well, I mean, I'd say first off, you know, I gotta say that the awareness is a big thing, to know yourself, to know what you want, to know the things, the places that you want to go. So kind of like take some time and focus on that, you know, make a list of the things that you want, what type of lifestyle you want, what careers or things that you could do could, you know, present you with that availability. You know, another thing would be the limiting beliefs. I think we talked about was, you know, the beliefs that we built from when we were kids, you know, all this up till now, what we've been telling ourselves are true about ourselves and our own success. And, you know, shelling those feelings of self-doubt really, and that comes with the self-awareness too. And that's kind of something that I would really quick just plug in here, that, you know, meditation is really good for. You know, it's not some hokey, you know, spiritual experience. It's literally just calming the mind. And so to kind of help identify some of your mindsets about yourself, it's helpful to meditate and kind of give some space in between your thoughts. And then I think it was decide now, you know, it was, so we got awareness. If it was a 3-step program, it's work on your self-awareness through meditation and, you know, identify your limiting beliefs about yourself and your views of success. And then take action, you know, immediately. As soon as you find something that you know, are passionate about and you want to do, take action on it. Don't wait, because the longer you wait on taking action, the longer you stay in this kind of, you know, lulled, apathetic zone of not knowing what to do or not really caring about anything. So yeah, I think that about covers it.
Yeah, and I think the key, you mentioned passion. I think that is the key to actually moving you beyond it, because that's that fire, right? It's like you find something, and it could be anything. It could be, you know, anything you're talking about, right? And it gives you this way to move forward. And if you don't have that now, right, the decisions you've made earlier, or the choices that you've maybe thought about, just try and orient yourself in the direction of at least finding that, right? At least finding the thing that gets you fired up, and really hold on to that. So I'll close up here. With the kind of the end of my mini story, so to speak, right? So I had this situation. I had this situation where, you know, I was in this, you know, programming deal, and I was like, you know, trying to get this thing worked out, and I was like totally behind schedule and all this kind of stuff, right? And all this kind of thing. Well, what happened was between this space, right? It was, you know, maybe six months, I don't know, something like that. Between this space, I was in a place myself, where I was extremely apathetic about what I was doing. I was doing it, but I was only doing it logically. I was only like, okay, this is what I need to do. But I didn't have any desire to be doing it. I didn't have any real need, real push, real oomph to do it, right? And something happened that woke me up. Something happened that actually oriented me in a completely new direction, in a completely different and new direction, which was I started to work on my own self. I started to work on my own self-awareness. I started to become more aware of what it was that I was actually thinking and doing in any given moment. And I started to realize that a lot of the decisions that I was making were actually coming from a place of just this leveled out playing field of like, well, you know, this is the best decision because this reason, this reason, this reason, but really it's not any better than this because I'm not really that interested in any of it. Well, what happened was I kind of let some of that stuff go. I kind of moved beyond some of that, and it opened more doors in my life than I've ever been able to really quantify, because I'm still sort of experiencing a lot of that stuff that happened now. You know, I met some new people. I ran into some new situations, got a business kind of off the ground, and all this kind of other stuff, right? And it all started with me really tackling that feeling, right? So maybe in your own life, you could start to move towards doing that, whatever that means for you, right? So that is the key, and that's the main thing that you need to remember today. So if you're listening now, just stay tuned. We're going to put out stuff more like this, and if this resonates with you, go take action now, and we'll see you soon.